name's Lee, and I'm from Northern Ireland. I've been living in Australia for about 8 years. We came out just a few months after we got married. I'm 33 years old. I'm the Youth and Young Adults Minister at Engadine Congregational Church, and we just got assessed about a couple of months ago for church planting.
Yep, I'm Cathra. I moved out with Lee 8 years ago. I'm from England originally, and we've got 3 kids. Joshua 5, Grace 3, and Sophia is 1, and we've got another one on the way. Yep.
She got a package deal. She got an Irishman, Australia, and then the kids kind of came later. Yeah, we're currently working for the Congregational Church, which are a group of independent evangelical churches called the FCC, and our plan and our vision is to start a church planting initiative, and they're with them by planting the first church. So at the moment, where we're up to in the process is we've put a proposal in for planting, and we're currently thinking through what are some of the short-term and long-term strategies to get not just this church plant up and running, but hopefully more people coming and planting, so that we have more viable evangelical gospel platforms throughout Sydney, to see more people come to him and come to Christ. Back in 2011, the Congregational Church has actually decided that what they needed to do was to plant and to rejuvenate the existing churches that were there. So at that point I decided, hey, Geneva Push, I know that they're here, I'm already kind of for the work that they do, so it was kind of like a no-brainer, to use an Australian term, for me to go to Multiply 2011 down in Melbourne, and so once we got assessed, it was just, why not come here? You know, I think you get equipped, you get inspired, and I think, you know, obviously they're unleashing us as well, but I think to do that in a way that's conversational, in a way that's actually rubbing and encouraging and spurring one another on, is just, that's just awesome.
Yeah, I think similar for me really. We were assessed a few months ago, and it sort of just seemed like the obvious next step. It's a place we can come to, learn more about church planting, be surrounded by other people who are doing the same thing, be encouraged by them, and be helped along the way every step of the way as best we can. We need as much help as we can get.
One of the reasons why we wanted to get assessed by Geneva was that, you know, lots of people can kind of potentially see gifts in you, and you can think in your head that you're somebody that's maybe wired that way. But it's a very different thing to have a group of people or a body like Geneva Push that will assess you, that will actually poke and prod you in the areas that maybe some of your closest friends might not actually do that, because they're scared to maybe say something that is going to hurt. And you know, we need to, I think church planters and people in ministry, we need to be able to expose ourselves to that. When we received the paperwork, I talk a lot, I'm Irish, we're oversharers, but one of the challenges, I think, was as we looked at all of the questions in the application process, was how much information we should actually put there. So we kind of just put everything on, right? We just did like a download of absolutely everything. And one of the amazing things about doing that was actually we got to look at our lives, and more particularly what it was that God had actually done in our lives in bringing us from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light, all of the different little blocks and steps along the way. I remember writing at the very bottom of one of the things, you know, it was just like a little caveat. I think I put it in brackets saying, it's not as bad as what it seems, because it just really reminded me actually of what my life was like without Jesus, and some of the family things and whatever that he has brought me out of, and those kind of things. So it was a wonderful process in that regard, even just to look back and be thankful for the work of God's grace in your life. Probably a challenging thing, I think, for me was that it exposed, God actually used the whole process, I think, in a good way to expose for me how pride actually works out in my life. I'm not an openly proud kind of person, but what I found was that as I looked at the forms, I went, oh my goodness, who are they looking for? I'm too fat to be hipster. This church planter over here is far more theologically articulate than I am. This guy over here, he looks a lot more strategic. And actually, God kind of used that process to help me see that those things were actually sinful things. And indeed to learn that early on in the process, that is something that I need to work on, was actually profoundly helpful. But not only that, it actually showed me and helped me to kind of confirm what it was that we were doing, and affirm as well the gifts that God has given us. And I think it's kind of playing to those and being able to work out from those weaknesses then as well, where you go from there.
I think I'd say similar to Lee, some of the challenges that when we were faced with the paperwork and the forms, some of the questions are very open-ended, which is great. But I remember one question in particular was, please give us a candid narrative of your marital history. Well, I go, my goodness, well, is that, half a side? Is that 10 pages? Is that, a thesis? Yeah. What's being expected and looked for? So I think that was one of the challenges for us, was kind of just going, well, yeah, like how much do we give in this? Are they just going to look at this and go, my goodness, we're never going to read all of that? Or is that actually what they're looking for? And I think so we just went on the, let's put everything down there and they can choose to read it or not. I think the advantage of that was by the time we actually came to the assessment interview, it sort of felt like we were sitting down with old friends. I'd never met either Scott or Audrey before, and Lee knew Scott a little bit. But really, they knew everything about us. They knew our life history. They knew the best and the worst of us. And so to sit,
always laid bare, really.
To sit down in that interview and just know that these people are for us, and they want to make sure we're not going to destroy our marriage, and we're not going to, go out there and plant a church that's going to fail quite quickly because we're not suitable and do damage to the gospel and those things. But to know that they're doing that in a loving, backing way, and I think for us that has been a bit of a bit of a contrast. We've had various experiences down this road, and a lot of what we feel like we're doing is having to push why church planting is a good idea, why maybe we're suited for that, why God's gifted us in that way. And so we feel like we've sort of been fighting a bit of an uphill battle, and all of a sudden it's like we've got these people who we know are backing church planting, we know will want that to happen, and they're just making sure that we're not going to kill ourselves in the process, and to check that all out. So that's a really good thing, and we came away from it feeling really encouraged. Even if the answer was no, it was like, well, we still know that they're for church planting, and that's that was really
and if I can maybe just say as well, like one of the great things is it's actually very holistic. On the theological questions, I kind of thought that I was writing a theological treatise, and not that it ever would have been matching that, but it was just actually really refreshing to kind of to have a process that was looking at all sorts of areas in your life, from exercise, how you get your downtime, how you spend time with your family, how you would think through and pastor people as well, even to the point that, like how much exercise that you have as well. And I think, being a student, I'm sitting on my butt a lot of the time, and that's really helpful to hear that they're not going to kind of just smudge over those other things, because we are holistic people. It's not just about how theological we can be, it's about the whole package, and that's awesome. It's really good.
Geneva Push is a supporting agency of many different churches, many different denominations, many different people, and it's not just somewhere where we're all going to be planting exactly the same church in exactly the same way. But I think so anybody that is interested in church planting from any perspective, if they come here, they'll see the good work that Geneva's doing, and also they'll go away feeling more equipped and inspired to keep going with that and keep supporting that.
And to be able to pray more effectively as well, because I think church planters, any ministry worker, we need a lot of prayer and support there. So to be able to do that, I think is just pretty awesome.